What's up, fantasy fam? I know a little bit of a surprise. I didn't even, myself included, I didn't even think I was going to get any segment in before the Thursday night segment. Found myself with absolutely nothing to do right now. I'm recovering from some sort of odd eye injury. I'm not going to get into details about that, but figured I'd break some stuff down for you for week one. Let me explain how the segments are going to be this year. Most of it is going to be the same. I just have a few little other things I'm going to touch on. Number one being is going to be the oh wow, and whenever I break that down, the oh wow player of the week is going to be a guy that I think is going to explode. And yes, it actually can be the guys such as a Le'Veon Bell. Maybe I think that maybe he just goes absolutely off rather than just hitting his floor. There's going to be one for each team. I'm not going to say like even the teams that don't have a full roster, they'll have a player in there. For rosters that are not set, because I know this is very early and there are two teams that don't have a quarterback or one's got a defense, yada, 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 that type of odd thing right now. There are some predictions I'm going to make, so if they don't have a quarterback in there, because I don't know who it is, I am going to project them for the average points per quarterback per week, which would be 15 to 18. I'm not going any further than that unless some drastic news does pop off. Last thing we're going to talk about, the best case scenarios and the worst case scenarios. So based on the matchups and the keys to victory, it's going to be something like that. Most of the times you're going to find the keys to victory happen between an advantage of the matchup and a specific spot, such as a flex, wide receiver, or running back, or what the matchup might come down to. Defenses. I will not be breaking down a lot of defenses unless I think it's something that I need to touch on, such as if you took a defense like the Jacksonville Jaguars, or maybe you're streaming a defense which is a very, 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 very vulnerable matchup. Those are the only time I will break down defenses. Now, obviously, I could be wrong. Something could pop up. But like I said, I really want to try to get segments in this year. I got an extremely busy workload that I haven't even got started on, really. So it's going to be very, very hard. But with my situation in the classroom, I am with another teacher, so maybe there is some flexibility that maybe I could put this in here and kind of step up my game Monday through Wednesday, and hopefully Thursday through Friday we kind of get stuff in here. With that being said, I highly doubt that Thursday night games will be included in the matchups because my workload, I try to get everything done by Saturday. That way, Saturday night something gets put up rather than Sunday, and you know what the deal is. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first matchup we have on the week. So I figured I'd start with this one because I'm going off of, I know it's kind of a cop-out, but I am going off of Yahoo projections. Now, this one is projected the lowest for the scoring total, and it has to do with a number of factors. One team does not have a defense. The other team does not have a quarterback for now. So without further ado, we are going to break down Matt versus Allen as the first game of the week for week number one. Now, when I look at both of these teams, they're constructed very differently. Allen, traded up to get AJ Green. Now, that was not a guy I would personally trade up for this year in particular, but we've seen weirder things happen, or stranger things if you want to go that route. Matt, on the other hand, has 4 players that are set to have really big years, but then everything else is kind of a huge question mark with him. Anyway, let's get into it. So if you notice on my intro, I said for the teams that don't have a quarterback yet, I'm going to project them for 15 to 18 points. And considering Allen is going to pick up Alex Smith, and they're against the Arizona Cardinals, which is not a, not an easy defense by any means, but it's not anything to be scared of at this point. So I'm going to say 15 to 18 there. And then Aaron Rodgers at home against the Chicago Bears. And this is actually the Sunday night game. A little bit of a surprise there that they put this one on the Sunday night game. Rodgers is projected a whopping 26.32. Bears do have a formidable defense, though, but I'm going to give the edge on the quarterback to Matt. When we talk about the wide receivers in this matchup, Michael Thomas and Robert Woods taking on Odell Beckham Jr. and Doug Baldwin. Well, if there is one guy who I want to say to, it's going to be Michael Thomas. I think this guy is going to go off week one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is going to be a very good DFS play for those of you who do play DFS. I think Michael Thomas has potential to easily get into double digits. I think he shatters that 15-point projection right there. I'm going to say he actually gets into the 20 points. Odell Beckham Jr. on the other side. This guy can, change a game with one play. I know it is against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but at the same token, I can see him struggling in the first half. Halftime comes across. Him and Eli think of a play to go against Jalen Ramsey. I think Ramsey wins the best of him from the entire matchup perspective, but he's going to give up one long bomb to Odell Beckham that can change the outcome of the game. But I really like Michael Thomas. I think I'll give the edge to Michael Thomas in this one. And then you have Robert Woods versus Doug Baldwin, who comes to the podium and pretty much says he will never be more than 85% this year due to his, I believe it is a knee injury. That is a little bit concerning, and considering he's going to go against Chris Harris, I don't like Doug Baldwin at all in this matchup. I am a huge Doug Baldwin fan, but Chris Harris is a guy who locks down the slot, one of the best slot corners. But at the same time, Robert Woods and the Rams receivers are very, very hard to figure out. Oakland does have a really bad defense. I know Rashard Melvin is the only defensive piece that they bought in for the secondary, but I think he's even going to be on Brandon Cooks, and I think Brandon Cooks gets the best of him. Woods, I think, target-wise, is going to take a back seat. I think you're going to get maybe 8 points out of him in this one. It's nothing spectacular there. So I think it's a wash at the wide receiver 2 spots. Jordan Howard, I've got love for Jordan Howard. A lot of people are hyping up the Green Bay defense. I don't know what I'm missing here. They didn't bring in that many pieces. I mean, Tramon Williams is the only thing I can remember. So, Matt, if you are, familiar with your defense, explain to me, because I still think Jordan Howard gets his. Chris Thompson, projected at 12. It's a big boost, and I think it has to do more of with Geis going down. I honestly thought Chris Thompson was going to take a huge backseat with Darius Geis. Well, now that Darius Geis is not there, Chris Thompson could be back on the radar, but I think he's going to be eased a little bit. If you want to talk about the efficiency with Alvin Kamara last year, Chris Thompson was a guy who was kind of a knockoff Alvin Kamara. He was not touching the ball and scoring on every play, but once in a while he was doing that. So I think he got lucky more than Kamara is a better talent. I think Thompson might get you 8 to 10, but nothing spectacular here. Isaiah Crowell taking on, who's this? Dion Lewis. Oh, that's an interesting matchup. Dion Lewis, I do think, is going to be a very good floor pick for the whole season. Derrick Henry, I still think, is going to be the lead dog in this backfield, but the one thing the Titans were missing out on was a pass-catching back. Dion Lewis is more than just that, too. I think he actually has a solid game. And Isaiah Crowell, preseason week 1, everybody was like, oh, this is going to be the guy. And now Powell is coming back into the mix. Charkandrick West, I don't think, has any value on either Crowell or Powell. I do think Crowell and Powell will be a mix here and there. Detroit does not have a good run defense. So because of that, he might score a touchdown. Jordan Reed taking on Evan Ingram. No more Tyrann Mathieu on the Arizona Cardinals. This is a very good streaming option for a healthy Jordan Reed and Jamison Crowder in this one. And then you have Evan Ingram against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If there's one guy, both are listed as questionable, but I'm going to have to give the edge here on Reed simply for the fact that it is a matchup-based prediction. I am not, I'd rather go with the guy against a soft Arizona team over the middle than a really stacked Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Okay, so this is, okay, I see what he did there. Saquon Barkley and AJ Green taking on Danny Amendola and LeGarrette Blount. Now, looking at this on paper, I'm giving the advantage to Allen with Barkley and AJ Green. I don't think Barkley comes out of the gates as the guy you thought you were getting in the first round. I honestly think that you might get around 10 to 12 points. This is a very formidable front. The Jacksonville Jaguars are. But they are better against the pass than they are against the run. But Barkley, I think, is going to have some growing pains in the early going, and then he kind of breaks out mid-season. AJ Green. Okay, this is a guy I am not big on. However, against the Indianapolis Colts, fire him up. He's going to have a big game. LeGarrette Blount I am not big on against the New York Jets. And Danny Amendola's got some sleeper appeal, but if we were in full PPR. Simply for the fact that when you're going up against this matchup, you got Malcolm Butler and you got Logan Ryan. These are guys who play on the outside, so that spells trouble for Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker. I think the middle of the field is going to be wide open, though. I know the only guy that Amendola is going to have to look out for is Kevin Byard if he does come down, and Kenny Vaccaro, who actually plays the slot pretty decent. But if there is a guy who's going to get the most catches in this one, it's probably going to be Amendola. Matt, you don't have a defense, so I'm just going to predict nothing there. Minnesota against San Francisco. I know they're projected a lot, 13 points. I don't know if I'm going to take the under on that, but maybe it might be like a 10-point kind of thing. All right, so now I got to predict a winner. There's a lot of uncertainty with the flexes and Matt's spot. Now, I know looking on paper, Allen's team, a lot of people are starting to rag on it, but it's actually not as bad as people think when he gets matchups like this. And even if you look at his bench, he's got Duke Johnson, Kenny Galladay. Like, the bench is not that bad. Allen, I think, is going to, once again, you look at it on paper, you're asking this kid, what is he doing? Come second half of the season, he picks it up again. I'm actually going to have to go with Allen in this one, although, here's my although. A best case scenario for Allen to win is he makes the right call on picking up a quarterback that can get him that manageable 18 to 20. But the matchups with Michael Thomas, Jordan Reed, and AJ Green, I think those three alone can really put a dent in the matchup here. The way for Matt to win this one, Aaron Rodgers needs to be on his A game. Odell Beckham's got to go through Jalen Ramsey. But if Matt wants to keep pace with Allen in this one, man, I think Doug Baldwin needs to show up and show us that he's healthy. I don't see it. And for the early going because of injuries, I'm going to have to give the edge to Allen.
You hear that? You guys hear that? It's rivalry season.
All right, so next matchup that I'm going to break down. Two teams that one of them has really, and when I mean really, hit the injury bug and the bad luck card. It's Max off the bat, and then we have Brian. When I look at both of these teams and both of these managers, this is a divisional matchup. Funny that I'm breaking down this division first. That's not a coincidence at all. Or maybe it is. No, I'm sorry. It is a coincidence that I am doing those games back to back. When I look at it, though, right now, I've got Phillip Rivers in one spot versus Andrew Luck. We'll start with the quarterbacks. Rivers is against Kansas City. Andrew Luck is against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to edge with Phillip Rivers here. I do think that Andrew Luck, he's still going to get pressured, and there's still going to be picks. Rivers does not turn over the ball as much. He's a little bit more careful with the ball. And Kansas City just released David Amerson. Their corners are really bad. The spells trouble for Keenan Allen's going to have a field day. Mike Williams has potential to maybe go up over the top because they are undersized corners. They're very undersized corners. I think Rivers has a big game. Same with what is his name? Oh, and the running game. I think the Chargers pounce the Chiefs, especially at home. I got to give the edge to Phillip Rivers. Wide receiver matchups. Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs versus Tyreek Hill and Josh Gordon. I want to give a little hot take on Mike Evans. I think this might be the year now. If I'm totally wrong on this, then hey, whatever. But Mike Evans, I think, is starting to fall more into a wide receiver 2 category than he is as a wide receiver 1. Or for those of you who want to get technical with it, he's now on the low end 1 status. Now, I don't know what the difference between a low end 1 and a wide receiver 2 is. Me personally, I think these experts use that term because they're afraid to say that a guy is going to get into the wide receiver 1 category. Hence, Stephon Diggs. If you ask me which guy this year has potential to finish as a wide receiver 1, is it Mike Evans or Stephon Diggs? I'm going to say Stephon Diggs, but because he hasn't done it and because of his injuries, they always say a high-end wide receiver 2 or a low-end wide receiver 1. Enough with that stuff. Just say if they're a 1 or a 2. Evans against the New Orleans Saints. I know the whole Marshawn Lattimore hype. It's warranted, don't get me wrong. But they're going to be behind a lot, which means there's going to be a lot of targets. Evans could finish with 12 targets. He might catch 5 of them, but I think they might be serviceable enough where he might get him at least 10 points. Diggs is going to have a field day. You already have Adam Thielen dealing with an injury. In preseason, Kirk Cousins is looking at this guy. He's going to have a phenomenal game. On the flip side, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill and Pat Mahomes kind of go together. If Mahomes' game isn't on, Tyreek Hill's game's not on. Mahomes is going to have a lot of picks in this game. I could see 2 to 3, but he's going to hit and connect with Hill for at least 1 bomb. That's just what I think is going to happen. Josh Gordon is going to be limited in this game. I know he's got a hamstring injury, and I know Hugh Jackson, You know what's going to happen? Cleveland Browns are going to sit this guy in the first half. They're going to be losing the game. It's going to be a close one in the first half. It's going to be something like 17, I don't know, we'll say 17 to 10, first half score. come out in the second half. I think Josh Gordon starts to show us why he's still a beast, but I don't think it's enough to kind of, win over Brian's receivers. I got to go with Brian in this one. Okay, so funny thing here that funny that Brian has a running back now called Boston. I don't know if anybody else caught on that. Boston Scott and Le'Veon Bell taking on David Johnson and Jonathan Williams. Well, right off the bat, you can kind of cancel each other out between Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, and then it becomes down to Jamal Williams and Boston Scott. Here's my thing on Jamal Williams. You're going to enjoy the ride, maybe, for the first 2 weeks, and then it's going to go away once Aaron Jones comes back. Not to mention the fact, somebody tweeted out, Jamal Williams' first 2 games are hard. He's got the Bears front, and now with Khalil Mack, the Bears have a stacked defense. Let's not sleep on the Chicago Bears. I was shocked. I was shocked that they got Khalil Mack. Jamal Williams against the Bears front, no thank you. I think this might be a Ty Montgomery game. I don't like Williams in this one, but Boston Scott, we don't even know, so I'm not going to predict running backs. I think running backs is a draw. Jimmy Graham and Trey Burton. Well, if Jimmy Graham was a wide receiver, I think this guy would be the biggest bust ever. But, you know what? It's against the Bears. They got good linebackers. Jimmy Graham might get 1 catch for 1 touchdown. He just doesn't look like he can run anymore. And then Trey Burton on the flip side. Burton is a big upside guy that you like to have this season against the Green Bay Packers. Burton is going to be a guy that people are going to regret not taking earlier. I think when Max got him, it was like the 10th. If there's one thing I'm not hating on Max's team, it's the Trey Burton pick. So good on there. I'll give the edge to Burton just because I think he can stretch the field, whereas Jimmy Graham has not shown that he can run. Chris Hogan and Greg Olsen taking on Kenny Stills and Cooper Kupp. I don't think this is a Cooper Kupp game. I think against Oakland, I think it's more of a Brandon Cooks type of game. And then you have Kenny Stills, who I understand, if you're going to take one Dolphins wide receiver, take Kenny Stills because he's the only one week in, week out, year in, year out, proves to lead the team in receiving yards, not including Jarvis Landry. So I get that. Malcolm Butler, I think we're going to see this year that he's not as good as a corner as we thought he was. In practice, I know it's practice and preseason exhibition scrimmages. He's always getting burnt. He's not boxing out receivers. Kenny Stills could probably go over the top. But Chris Hogan is the breakout player you want this year against the Houston Texans. He's guaranteed a touchdown. You can mark that. And Greg Olsen, who I am not really big on. So it comes down between, I think Chris Hogan and Kenny Stills might finish with close lines. But Greg Olsen and Cooper Kupp, toss-up. There's a reason why Yahoo's predicting this 117 to 118 because it's going to be close. But, guys, come on. What is with this defense? Green Bay, you're relying on turnovers. And then when you have the Detroit Lions, on the flip side, you're relying on turnovers. These are not good defenses. Detroit against a rookie quarterback, yeah, you would play them. Detroit has not looked very good on defense. I don't care if it's Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia, to me, doesn't do much. And then you have Green Bay against the Chicago Bears. I get Trubisky, but I think he's got a lot more weapons, so I'm not big on this. Now I got to pick a winner. So I like Rivers over Luck. I like Brian's receivers over Max's receivers just because of the uncertainty of Josh Gordon. If we see Josh Gordon healthy, I think this would be a lot closer than people would think. The running backs, I think there's a false projection with Jamal Williams. I think that's more of an 8-point game you're going to get out of him because he's going to be touchdown or bust, and I don't see the Bears defense taking it lightly. Jimmy Graham versus Trey Burton. All right. This is a tough one to call, but I think the simple matter of the fact is this. Rivers, Diggs, and Chris Hogan, I think, have phenomenal days. Whereas you look at the Max side of things, the only guy I can see without a shadow of a doubt that I know is going to have a big game is going to be obviously David Johnson, and maybe Tyreek Hill. But everything else I think is too questionable to call. So my thing is, even with an unknown running back, I think Brian gets away with a win. This one's going to be a tough one to call too. So you have Andre, who had the number 1 pick in the draft, against Rob Coffey. So I'm going to play the quarterback rule in effect here, that he doesn't have a quarterback because the reports came out saying that Carson Wentz is not going to be ready for week 1. Therefore, Coffey's got to find somebody. So I'm projecting 15 to 18 in that range because I think that's what everybody's floor is at in the free agent pool, but I don't see, unless something happens. Tom Brady against Houston is going to tear him up. It's just what he does. So I'll give the advantage to Andre. T.Y. Hilton and Golden Tate taking on Devontae Adams and Juju Smith-Schuster. The Bears do have a good defense, but I don't think it's good enough to stop Devontae Adams. Last year, the Bears' corners were very, very serviceable. I think that might change, though, this year. I think the Bears are better up front and their linebacking core. Adams, I still think, is a good wide receiver 1, and you're going to be talking about him as a late first-round pick next year. So give me Devontae Adams over T.Y. Hilton simply for the fact that I don't know how T.Y. Hilton's shoulder is progressing. Golden Tate versus Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm going to make this one easy. Juju. Golden Tate's a good wide receiver, but he's against the Jets, who do have a slot corner. Or Buster Screen, who's not great, but I think this is more of a Galladay and Marvin Jones game than it is a Golden Tate game. Sorry, I'm eating a pretzel. Okay, so leaving off where I was, we had Golden Tate taking on Juju Smith-Schuster. I just think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to, like, if not, there might be 1 or 2 games where he doesn't get double digits. This is a guy, who brings a safe floor with a lot of upside. I mean, he's literally the pick you want to have this year. And I'm very, very jealous of that pick. So, yeah, I'm probably going to send offers for him. Anyway, I got to give it to Juju on that one because I think Marvin Jones and Galladay type of game against the Jets because they get burnt over the top more than they do over the middle of the field. Ezekiel Elliott and Joe Mixon taking on it. Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. Well, with the news that, hey, Jonathan Williams not going to be part of the solution, both these guys are a toss-up. Kamara is he's due for a big workload against the Buccaneers, though. And then Joe Mixon versus Derrick Henry. I'm going to plant my bust flag on Joe Mixon. I don't like what I'm looking at right now. You could say that it's just preseason. The only thing he's looked good at is his receiving ability. Now, I think because of that, he might escape the quote-unquote bust flag because I'm not just saying Andre, but the people that do draft Joe Mixon, their counter argument is going to be this: oh, it's okay because I drafted him as my RB2 anyway, so I'm good. Okay, I get that. He might be serviceable, but this is not going to be a guy who's going to ascend to that next level. He's going to, from an NFL perspective, he's going to underperform a lot. The fact that he is catching the ball, though, kind of makes his value a little bit warranted. But I think this is a guy who puts up more than an 8 to 10 range than he does that guaranteed 10 to 17, which a lot of people think that he could be. I am not one of those people. Now, if this guy does become a monster and finishes as an RB1, I will go on camera on Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook and apologize to you, Andre. I'll do that for you, but I'm not big on Joe Mixon. I don't see it. Derrick Henry, on the other hand, I know the only thing he's got to worry about is Deion Lewis, but my thing is this: if he was a backup to DeMarco Murray and had this upside, he's now the lead dog against the Miami Dolphins. This looks like a touchdown game for Derrick Henry. It also looked like it could be a game where Tennessee does go up. However, I don't trust that with Mariota in a new system, so maybe some hiccups could be warranted. But I'll take Derrick Henry over Joe Mixon, even if it is the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking Derrick Henry. Ben Watson, this is a very underrated pickup. A lot of people have slept on Ben Watson versus Kyle Rudolph. Rudolph is a guy who could probably finish in the top 5, if not top 3 for tight ends this year, because he is working with Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is a guy who loves to go over the middle of the field. And then you have Ben Watson. Tampa Bay is a very soft defense. So is San Francisco. I'm actually going to have to call a draw here, as funny as that sounds. Oh, I see you switched it up in the flex a little bit. I like it. Tariq Cohen and Lamar Miller taking on Nelson Aguilar and Emmanuel Sanders. I think I skipped the oh wow segment, but the oh world segment over here for Coffey is going to be Emmanuel Sanders. This guy is going to explode against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm planting my flag right now. You're going to get close to 20 points. Okay, I don't know the Griffin, Shaquem, whatever his name is. The guy on the outside, one of the Griffin brothers, plays the outside very well. I think Demaryius Thomas is in for a rough day. Demaryius Thomas, I could see 4 catches, 50 yards at best. Emmanuel Sanders, on the other hand, with the move to the slot, he is going to have a phenomenal day. He's going to have the type of day that what's going to happen is after this week is over, there's going to be a segment on the ascending Sanders, or people are going to go crazy for Emmanuel Sanders. He is going to be a very good sell high opportunity after this game. Now, I know Coffey likes his long-term success, and this was probably the best value and the guy I regret the most passing up on the draft. This guy's going to explode this week, especially. And then you have Nelson Aguilar. Let me take a step before I get to him. Nelson Aguilar. He's the only healthy Philly receiver that you have against the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people are hyping him up because he can be that guy without Alshon Jeffrey in there. But he's a slot role guy, and if Mike Wallace can't beat press coverage like he used to, Desmond Trufant's going to shadow this guy. I don't think Aguilar's the type of receiver that, how do I put it, that can necessarily beat good corners. I think they moved him to the slot because what people do is they try receivers out in slots because it hides their flaws a lot. That's what I see with Nelson Aguilar. I know the value is there because you did get him very, very late, but I think you're looking at maybe 7 to 8 points. Flip side, Lamar Miller and Tariq Cohen. If there's an oh wow guy on Andre's team, it's going to be Lamar Miller. Bill Belichick is going to game plan for DeAndre Hopkins. I think we all know that. Or it could be Will Fuller. I think the Texans are very hard to game plan by. Last year when Watson played the New England Patriots, they really couldn't take away anything. He had a really good game. Miller with Watson, though, is going to get a lot of points. They're projecting him for 14, and with Foreman now on the pup, Lamar Miller is going to be your RB2 for an extended period of the season. Tariq Cohen's a little bit harder to figure out. This does look like a game that Chicago could be trailing in, though, so maybe he gets some work. But I love Sanders in this one. Miller would be all right. So then it comes between who I like more, Tariq Cohen or Nelson Aguilar. And actually, you know what? Now that I'm actually going to have to double take, I actually like Cohen in this because I think he's on return yardage duty, and I'm not big on Aguilar if he has to go against Devonta Freeman. Coffey does not have a defense. Andre does. Andre's got Denver against Russell Wilson. There could be a lot of sacks. A lot of sacks in this one. So maybe that is something I got to talk up. Now I got to pick myself a winner. So I give the advantage to quarterback and Andre. Receiving wise, though, I give the advantage in Coffey. Running backs, I give to Coffey. Tight ends is a wash. So right now it's 2-1 Coffey. I do think that the flexes are going to be very, very, very even in this matchup. I don't see them getting out of hand. Even though Sanders will explode, I do think that Miller's floor as a starter and Cohen and Aguilar might cancel each other out. So it then comes down to the defense and the fact that you have Tom Brady and a set defense. I'm going to be on the conservative end of this one, even though I do think there's going to be a lot of playmaker potentials. I'm going to pick Andre in this one, even though I am not big on Mr. Joe Mixon. So when I go and look at Coffey for a second, keys to victory for Rob Coffey. He needs, I think it's guaranteed that Adams and Juju do really well. Henry needs a touchdown. Rudolph needs a touchdown because I do think there's a lot of big play potential from Tom Brady. Even though the receivers, hold on, man, this is a tough one to call. I think because of the defense and Tom Brady, I'm going to give a slight edge to Andre just because I know that it's there. This sounds like a very big cop-out, but I don't have a quarterback on Rob Coffey's side, and I don't have a defense on Rob Coffey's side. Maybe if he makes those moves, and maybe I see something that kind of jumps at me, because I do think that the receivers for Coffey will kind of annihilate, Andres, and his running backs will. But I think the quarterback, the defensive play, and the flexes kind of cancel each other out, and I even think the tight ends. But the Tom Brady factor could play a big factor in this one. It's a bit of a cop-out, but I wouldn't be surprised. This is a tough one to call. But I got to go Andre just because he has a full lineup in and I'm overthinking this too because I actually do like the receivers in Juju and Devontae Adams. But I think that Hilton and Tate might keep pace just a little bit to give Andre the edge. All right, so rolling along here, we're now going into a division we haven't touched on yet, and then we have Paul taking on Lewis. This is a rivalry and a bad blood rivalry, which is the reason why I did put this on week number 1. Both teams are constructed differently. You had one guy in the draft who went the zero RB theory, and the other guy did the zero wide receiver modified version of it a little bit, and both are hoping for big things. So you have Russell Wilson taking on Big Ben. Flat out, if this was at home, I think Roethlisberger would win this matchup. Both are on the road. Russell Wilson at Denver against that pass rush I don't like, but it's Russell Wilson, so he still could probably get the job done. But Ben, if there's one bold statement I have, I think Ben finishes the top 5. Cleveland Browns do have a defense, but you know what? I still got to go Ben, AB, Juju, and the fact that James Washington might be a thing now too. I think there's a lot of weapons Ben has to work with. And the thing that I like about Ben too is that Le'Veon Bell is not adjusted yet. Demaryius Thomas, Jamison Crowder taking on Antonio Brown and Keenan Allen. This is a landslide victory. I'm going AB and Keenan Allen. There's not much to touch on here. Keenan Allen's going to score. Antonio Brown's going to score. Demaryius Thomas, I think, is in for a rough day. I think he's got to go against Shaquille, whatever their names are, the Griffin brothers. I know Seattle's defense has taken a major step back, but I think it's over the middle of the field. I still think they have serviceable corners. I think Sanders has a good game. And when we talk about Jamison Crowder, he's going to avoid Patrick Peterson. Peterson is a guy who does not follow wide receivers in the slot. But the reason why I passed on Crowder this year was simply for the fact that he doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. I think he's a floor-based guy. I haven't checked his, projections, but I think he's a guy I would only set at 10 to 11 every single week. I am not bumping him up. I am not bumping him down. That's the kind of range you're going to get. If he scores a touchdown, it's always like that 15 to 16 sort of range. But I love Paul's wide receiver combo. Fournette and Hunt taking on Kenyon Drake and Marshawn Lynch. Well, I think that the Rams are a little overrated, but they will be up in this game. So I think Lynch might get phased out a bit, but Lynch could have a game where he might get 12 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Kenyon Drake, all of a sudden now, people are on Kenyon Drake. And I'm going to take a sip and I might tell you why people are on. I'm a little hesitant, but the reason why people are on Kenyon Drake is because we saw what he did last year, but now they bought in Frank Gore. Keenan Ballage is another guy that they have. Drake is projected at 15, and there's one thing that I am a little upset about Yahoo is that they are over-projecting a lot of people. Okay, guys that I think are being over-projected, but I could see why, but I think Yahoo is doing best-case scenarios. For example, Leonard Fournette, 18 points. When has Leonard Fournette been projected 18 points? Kareem Hunt at 16, I think, is even a little bit too high. Drake at 15. If I'm going to revise it, I think Yahoo needs to go back, revise their projections. Leonard Fournette should be at 14. Kareem Hunt should be at 12. Kenyon Drake should be at 10. Marshawn Lynch can stay at 12. They're doing these best-case scenario projections, and I know it looks great. You're going to get excited about it, but I think they're pushing it a little too far. Fournette will have a game against the Giants. Guarantee that. Drake, if the volume's going to be there, Paul might be laughing at all of us. But I'm not buying the 15 points. 10 to 12 is more like it because this is a guy who needs touchdowns too, and I don't see it happening. Then it comes down to Kareem Hunt and Marshawn Lynch. Kareem Hunt is now in a role where Charkandrick West is no longer there. So people are going to assume he's going to be a 3-down back. There's a guy called Damian Williams who's good in pass protection. That could put a dent in Hunt's role, but nothing to be scared here. It's going to be Lewis in the running back department. Okay, so if Walker suits up, I'm giving the edge to Delaney Walker. Jack Doyle, my reasoning for Jack Doyle was that I thought that Eric Ebron was going to put a dent in his value a little bit, and it could. I mean, rightfully so. But Delaney Walker is still the go-to guy in Tennessee if he stays healthy. I know Corey Davis is going to be the guy that's going to be looked at to bring up that target share. And the hype is warranted for him, of course, because they spent a 5th pick overall on him. But Walker has always been the security blanket for Mariota. If reports are that he's getting in full practices, I like Delaney Walker. If I see limited, I'm going to have to sign on the area of caution and say a draw in the tight end department. Alex Collins and Jordan Wilkins, who might be a very, very good sleeper pick. I was actually surprised that somebody took him that early. I thought Wilkins was going to be in the 10th round or even later, but that's what happens when you do research. Jordan Wilkins, for you who don't know, I'm not big on fantasy writers as much, but one guy I will give credit to is Mike Clay has been hyping this guy up since May. So it's not like, this guy just came out of nowhere and yada yada, whatever. Alex Collins, Jordan Wilkins, Amari Cooper, Pierre Garçon. Okay, Pierre Garçon I'm canceling out right now. He ain't going to do anything. Amari Cooper. I love the talent of Amari Cooper, but he is against the Rams. Cooper, to me, has been a really great talent, and I like his upside this year a lot. The one thing that I haven't seen from Amari Cooper, though, has been his ability to do a lot of damage against these elite corners. Now, Peters, I don't have a problem with Amari Cooper. But if Aqib Talib is shadowing Amari Cooper and Talib does follow around, I hate to say this, you might be in for a long day. The best thing for the Raiders, though, is that they are home, so the crowd could be behind them, and Cooper might get one off of Aqib Talib. But we look at Alex Collins against the Buffalo Bills. Baltimore versus Buffalo is going to be the most boring game on week 1. Alex Collins might find the end zone because the Ravens run a slow, boring offense. The one game I never want to see is Dallas versus Baltimore. That would put me to sleep. 14 points projected for Alex Collins. I even think that's a little high because Collins is not that used in the passing game. I think he's more towards the 11-point range. Jordan Wilkins, we don't know what's going to happen, but if he does start, that cancels out Garcon. So by default, I got to go with the flexes with Lewis. Rams against Philly. Philly's D, I think, is going to be in for a rude awakening. I think the Falcons are going to win this game. They don't have Carson Wentz, and I think the Atlanta Falcons might surprise people on opening day. I do think that the Rams, as a whole, are a good team, but I think they're a little overrated. And Derek Carr doesn't turn over the ball as much. There might be some sacks, though, with that front. All right, so I'll pick the defense there. Okay, so now time for me to pick a winner. I do think that the wide receiver department for Paul gives him a slight advantage in this matchup because I do think that I projected Marshawn Lynch as a touchdown. I said Fournette and Hunt might get close to the projections. Drake, I think, gets around 10 points. So there, in fact, you got Paul on the edge a little bit. Tight ends, no effect. But then the flexes come into play, and I think that's where the matchup is going to get decided. It's going to be the flexes. And now my wiles on Lewis's side, I'm going to have to go with, I'm not huge on any of these guys. I think Lewis's running backs, I think, give him a solid floor. But I think the receivers are going to not necessarily, well, Thomas I could see being a bust. But the guy I can see is Alex Collins, simply for the fact that I think Baltimore might be up by a gazillion points in this game. Alex Collins has potential for 1, maybe even 2 touchdowns. And then when you look at the flip side, Paul, the guy, I mean, this is a little bit of a cop-out, but hey, I'm going to have to go with Keenan Allen. Kansas City has no secondary. Keenan Allen is going to feast. If you think back that one game when Paul had him, I think it's now 2. Are we looking at it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? It was the Detroit Lions game, the Amir Abdullah rookie season year, whatever that was, and Allen feasted. You're going to see the same thing again, dude. Oh, man. All right. Tough call now. I think because of the guaranteed floor of Lewis's running backs, even though Paul gets to a big, big lead in his wide receiver department, this is tough. I do think this is going to be a very, very close matchup. I think Lewis edges out Paul slightly. Okay, it's going to be a tough one to call because I think the flexes, the matchups are not there for Paul, and I think they are there for Lewis. And even with Lewis's receivers busting, I think the flexes and his defense might put him over as the X factor. All right, so now it's early in the season. I don't know which games are going to be good. I don't know which games are going to be bad. I'm going to talk about the matchup that I'm in right now against David. Yahoo, within the span of, God knows, 5 days, has up off their projections, and I'm not as thrilled. On paper, I love to see my projections go up. I mean, who doesn't? But I think they're projecting this for best case scenarios on a lot of guys. But this matchup is going to be an interesting one. With the projecting at 120 to 123, let's get into it. Quarterbacks, both quarterbacks are not in ideal matchups. Pat Mahomes and Jimmy Garoppolo. Funny thing is, both are also on the road. Looking back into the draft, there were two guys that were being hyped up. It was Garoppolo and Mahomes. The upside with Mahomes is tremendous, but there's a lot of downside. I think you're going to get a safe floor with Garoppolo, but these are both very, very tough matchups. I think Garoppolo and Mahomes are going to have very similar games. That's why they're at 20 points. I see Mahomes turning over the ball a little bit more than Garoppolo, but I think they're both going to find their guy over the top, Marquise Goodwin and Tyreek Hill. They're going to at least connect for one touchdown, but I think a two-touchdown game is going to be a little hard for both of them. I'm not big on both of these quarterbacks in this matchup. I'm going to give it a draw. Then we go to the wide receivers, and off the bat, give credit to where it's due. Julio Jones against the Philadelphia Eagles spells a lot of trouble. The one thing about the Eagles, hold on, they were able to contain Julio last year, but I think Sarkisian, if he's a really smart guy, he'll kind of open up things for Julio Jones. He's probably going to score a touchdown. And then you have Devin Funchess. This is a guy that I was really, come in May I was on him, but every report I was reading is that they were saying bust, 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 bust. The only thing that is warranted Devin Funchess as a bust is because he runs only two routes. It's back shoulder catches because he's a big-bodied receiver, and Cam and him have a good connection on that, and deep posts. He is, by default, their number one target, so I don't understand. I hope this is a guy I don't regret not taking, because I think everybody was planting the bust flag, and I don't think it was that warranted. Then you have Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones. I actually like the matchups for both of these guys. Landry, I think, is... with Josh Gordon now, Landry is just going to be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the season. And Marvin Jones does have upside to be a wide receiver 1 in specific matchups. Okay? And the Jets, with Claiborne as their number 1 corner, I think this is a matchup where Marvin Jones does prevail. When it comes down to it, though, Julio Jones is at Philly, and I'm going to give respect to where it's due because I do think that Jarvis Landry, if he doesn't score a touchdown, could come close to Funchess' numbers. I'm going to have to pull the draw card on that one. Full disclosure, David, I am very, very superstitious. So I don't say that I'm going to win. I'm going to give you how the keys to victory. That's how I do with my matchups. That's what I've been doing, so I haven't been changing this at all. Except for playoffs. That's the only time if I pick a victory. I am very, very superstitious, so I don't want to say anything there. Running backs, Melvin Gordon and McCaffrey. Speaking of best case scenario, I love Christian McCaffrey. I took him. But Yahoo, let's calm down with the 19 projected. Whew, jeez. Okay. I even think that Cook is a little bit high off the gate. I think these projections are going to go down eventually. McCoy is going to be the workhorse for Buffalo. Cook against the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's going to be limited, and because of the limited flag and the bad matchup for LaShawn McCoy, I'll give the edge to myself on that one. Tight ends, well, I mean, take it any way you want. It's either Kelsey or Ertz, and you're going to beat me because I have Njoku. Although I do think Njoku does have a solid matchup without Ryan Shazier over the middle of the field. And then a lot of uncertainties here with my team. I am starting Corey Davis because he is going to be against the Miami Dolphins, and he is the number 1 wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Kelsey against the Chargers. This is going to be a game where I'm interested to see how the connection between Mahomes and Kelsey does progress. I mean, we all like Tyreek Hill, and we know he's going to be the guy that the Chargers are going to be keying on. But where does that leave Kelsey? That's the big question mark here. Peyton Barber is in as of right now. The only reason why I have him is because of the guaranteed workload. I do think that he only comes out of third in longs or 2-minute drills. But so far from what I've seen, and even if you go back to last year, he's been very serviceable. But I think the 10 points is okay. I wouldn't push him further than that. Rex Burkhead, if he indeed is healthy like they're saying, I'm going to give the edge to you simply for the fact that Rex Burkhead could be a great running back if he stays healthy. The only Patriot back that I think is For non-upside purposes, safe to own is James White because I think he's going to be involved heavily this year with the amount of question marks and injuries that they have, which is why I own him on the bench. Then we have defenses. Even though I did spend a high pick on Jacksonville, there could be turnovers with Eli Manning. There could be a lot of sacks with that offensive line. You got to love what you see at home, a defense at home against Ryan Fitzpatrick. I might even give you the edge on that one. Now, David, remember I said I don't pick winners. I'd say keys to victory. Well, my keys to victory are this. Jimmy Garoppolo's got to hit that 20 points because it's a Minnesota Vikings defense, and as good as they are, they do have some games where they do let up just a tad bit. The other key to victory would have to be Corey Davis starting off the season strong and Peyton Barber doing something. Although I am still thinking about putting Kelvin Benjamin in there, but the keys to victory would have to be Jimmy Garoppolo and Corey Davis, I think, hitting on their projections, considering that everything else has their decent floor already built in. Keys to victory for David. Off the bat, I think the wild card here in this matchup for you is going to be Devin Funchess. Is he gonna produce? Is he not going to produce? This does, on paper, looks like a matchup where he could, but hey, stranger things have happened. The other thing I'm going to say is an X factor for you is Travis Kelce, because a lot of people are expecting a rough going for Pat Mahomes, and the best way to kind of cure everything is go to the safety blanket and Travis Kelce. And I'm saying this with Rex Burkhead hitting the floor, and I'm saying this with Julio Jones and McCoy and Cook coming close, or at least hitting their floor. So I think the X factors for both teams to get their keys to victory, on my side of the ball, it would have to be Corey Davis, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I guess Njoku, simply for the fact that you do have two beasts of tight ends that have touchdown potential. And then when I look on your side of the ball, your keys to victory would have to be Funchess, and who was the other guy? I just said it. I guess Funchess and Burkhead just getting that workload that you paid for. This is going to be a very, very close matchup, without a doubt. The way I see it, though, there's going to be somebody on this team, the oh wow guys that I'm going to say for both teams, and I don't want to jinx it. I need some motivation out of this guy. For myself, I think I'm hoping it's Corey Davis. He's the guy who's going to see a lot of targets. I know Rashard Matthews is back, but I think he's going to be permanent slot for this team. So I think that Davis could have that oh wow moment maybe against the Miami Dolphins. And for David, the oh wow guy is going to be Rex Burkhead if he indeed is healthy, or Bill Belichick could say, screw you guys, and Jeremy Hill goes off, because that's what he does. That's my take. So, which game was I going to put on for the game of the week in week number 1? There were 3 games that I was kind of struggling between. Okay? Coffey and Andre did come to mind, but with Coffey's uncertainty, I didn't want to kind of do that. So we're going to leave it to the game of the week, which I think is going to live up to a lot of hype week 1. And that is Johnny's team taking on, oh baby, Harsh's team. Now, I thought of a new nickname for Johnny, okay, because he has broken the Marvin Lewis curse, so he's no longer the Marvin Lewis of fantasy football. I want you to hear me out. Johnny's new nickname for fantasy football, after years and years of having amazing drafts and Yahoo falling in love, Johnny has officially become the Kim Kardashian of fantasy football. What do I mean by that? Okay, so Yahoo is the paparazzi, and they're always trying to figure out what is Johnny going to do, and they love every single minute when he has a great draft. They give him the A. You go to the projections without a kicker, they're already giving this kid 131 projected points. Don't get me started. You are now the official Kim Kardashian of fantasy football, so congratulations. I'm going to give you a big round of applause. So you ditched the Marvin Lewis card. You are now the Kim Kardashian of fantasy football. Anyway, let's get into it. Here's a reason why this is going to live up to a lot of hype. Look at the quarterback matchup. You can't help but look at it and say to yourself, brother, that Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson are going to live up to the hype. All right, Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson. Okay, very good matchups for both. I think that both are going to live up to the hype. I think the Houston Texans are smoke screening Deshaun Watson. I think they're using him in a limited capacity, but he is against the New England Patriots where they're going to have to throw. It's going to be a high-paced offense. New England's offense moves very fast. The Texans are going to have to keep up, and then you have Cam on the other side. I love both of these quarterbacks if they can stay healthy. They're going to live up to the expectations. And speaking of Houston, you got Hopkins and Fuller to go with Deshaun Watson. Now, I'm going to do harsh if you're familiar with what I did with Lewis last year. Lewis had both Denver wide receivers. So since you have both Houston wide receivers, I'm going to say and set the number at 40 points projected. I'm going to say under or over. And you have Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins in this matchup against the New England Patriots. I think that Watson might have a good game, but I'm going to have to side on the era of caution and say that it is going to be under. Reason being, I do think that Bill Belichick is going to have their defense prepared for a bomb from Will Fuller. I don't see him capitalizing on it against the New England Patriots because they are expecting it. They're going to game plan for that bomb to come. But I do think that Hopkins will get his. Funny thing, I think that Hopkins gets a lot of catches. He does not get a touchdown, and I think Fuller will get shut down. I'm going to say that they combine for 36 instead of 40 fantasy points, which I think you'd still be okay with. So I could see Hopkins getting 20, you know what, not 36, that was too much. 31. I can see Hopkins, man, no, that still comes out really good. Bottom line, it's under 40. Next. Or did I have it at 30? Hold up, harsh. I think I had that number set at 30. I'll have to ask Lewis. I don't remember on my podcast. So if we're doing over 30, it's under. Definitely under. Thielen and Larry Fitz. I'm going to have... So if I said under 30 for Hopkins and Fuller, because I think it's going to be something like 20 points for Hopkins and 7 for Fuller, which gets 27. Thielen, I do think, is going to be having a rough first half of the season. I just think that he's more in sync with Diggs. I like Thielen. My thing with Thielen was I think we saw the ceiling last year. I don't think he can get any higher than that, personally. And he's dealing with this leg injury, which means that he could be at a limited capacity. Larry Fitzgerald against the Washington Redskins. The one thing I like about this matchup, let me take a sip. For what it's worth, and if you do still think that Norman is an elite corner, I don't. I think Norman's always been overrated, but that's not to say that he's still good. I think he's a good corner, not an elite corner. He does not travel in the slot at all. I don't even think he really does that much. But I think Fitzgerald does have a big game against whatever. So it's going to be a toss-up because I think Thielen and Fuller don't have good games, but I think Hopkins and Fitzgerald can. So right off the bat, this is why it's the game of the week. It's a close matchup. Todd Gurley and Jay Ajayi versus Devonta Freeman and Chris Carson. Well, Todd Gurley, I wouldn't be surprised if Yahoo, if they did up his projections, they're going to up it even more with Khalil Mack out. He's already predicted at 21, which is a hard number to beat, but this guy is going to feast in this one. You got to love what you see out of that. Freeman, I don't think has that big of a game. I am one of these guys who I think that Freeman is a good talent, but I think we're going to be looking at back this year and say to ourselves, you know what? He benefited from Kyle Shanahan's play calling more than it was him being this stud of a monster. That being said, I think Freeman is going to be a guy we look in drafts next year that say, okay, this is going to be your RB2. You want him as an RB2. You don't want him as an RB1. Which, if you want me to spell it out for you, Gurley over Freeman. Jay Ajayi versus Chris Carson. I think Jay Ajayi has a really bad opening week. He's coming off an injury. They're saying all systems go, but this is also Doug Peterson. I don't trust Doug Peterson. I know Carson's coming back. Darren Sproles is back. Wendell Smallwood, I think, still made the team, but I'm not even going to throw his name out there. You're going to see a three-headed committee in this one. I'm not big on Jay Ajayi at all. Hot take, I think Chris Carson outscores Jay Ajayi. I think Carson has a really good game. That's my on harshest side of the ball. Chris Carson against the Denver Broncos. The best way to beat the Denver Broncos is to run that ball. And I think that Carson outperforms Jay Ajayi, but it's not going to be enough because of Todd Gurley. Slight edge. I'm going to say that the running backs on Jay's side of the ball combined for 35, whereas the running backs for Harsh's side are more on that 30 range. So slight edge to Jay on that one. Okay, Harsh, don't complain here, boy. You got Rob Gronkowski versus Eric Ebron. I think we know who wins that one. All right, this is where things get very interesting. And I think this is where the matchup is decided. Royce Freeman, who is not the starter, but who the fuck is buying that? And Carlos Hyde taking on Allen Robinson 2 and Brandon Cooks. So time and time again, I've been talking about the Rams wide receivers, and it's going to be a DFS play thing for anything. Luckily for Harsh, I think this is a Brandon Cooks week. I think he does find the end zone. Allen Robinson's hard to figure out, man. I am not big on Allen Robinson. He was one of those guys that I would only take him if he was 5th round and you could get him as a wide receiver 3. He hasn't done much. The last time Allen Robinson became a stud wide receiver 1 was the year he broke out 4 years ago, 3 years ago now. And then after that year where he got hyped up, he hasn't lived up to it. Then he got hurt. I think he's a decent talent, but like it's nothing that I'm like excited about. So yeah, not big on Allen Robinson, especially with what Trubisky does. I think Miller has a better game than Allen Robinson. Royce Freeman and Carlos Hyde. So even with Devontae Booker being the starter, Royce Freeman is going to have fresh legs. He's got nothing to worry about at this point. Devontae Booker is on such a short leash that he's got to step his game up, not just one time, every time. Every time he steps up onto that field. Freeman's going to come in. He's going to get the job done. I think he breaks one off. Wow. I'm sorry. I was watching the Yankees game and some guy just sped down the first base line. My bad. Off topic. Royce Freeman is a stud. This is a guy I was hyping up. Jay can flat out tell you this. I love his talent. I love everything about him. And even an owner in our league cut Devontae Booker after being named the starter. Carlos Hyde against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. He might be all right. Hyde's a guy, it's touchdown or bust for Hyde. And he has potential to find the end zone in this one. And then Baltimore taking on Pitt. I'm actually surprised that Pittsburgh is... I guess it's Cleveland. If Tyrod Taylor starts, I don't see Pittsburgh getting a lot of points. Baltimore streaming against Buffalo, though. Jay, you know what you're doing there, so congratulations. Doesn't matter who is in there. All right, time to pick a winner. So, quarterbacks are going to light up the scoreboard. Wide receivers, I gave a slight edge to Harsh. Running backs, slight edge to Jay. But I told you guys, oh no. The X factor clearly is Gronkowski over Ebron. Keys to victory, Harsh. You can't have Rob Gronkowski score a touchdown. I think that gives you more of an advantage because let's be honest, Eric Ebron is a guy who gets 2 catches for 13 yards, but you're hoping for that touchdown because he is not going to be the vocal point of the yard. It's going to be Doyle. At least I hope or think. Freeman and Hyde both have touchdown potentials with very, very easy matchups. But Cooks could go over the top, and I'm not big on Robinson. And then it comes down to the defense. Keys to victory for Johnny. Okay. You need Jay Ajayi to have a good game. And as funny as it sounds, you need Gronkowski to get you that touchdown because it gives you an advantage on Harsh already. And if Ebron doesn't do anything, you could kind of look at Rob Gronkowski as cancel out Harsh's tight end and his flex. So you've got an advantage, a huge advantage in the tight end department on that one because I even like your flexes. So I think a Gronkowski touchdown and Jay Ajayi to get close to 10. I think that's your key to victory. Keys to victory to Harsh. Texans need to score. That's always going to be every time I'm going to do your take. Texans need to score. Freeman needs to have a big game for you. And I'm not talking about that 15. I'm talking more of a 20-point game. Because the Eagles have a very big defense, but your keys to victory, I think, are a Chris Carson huge game, Brandon Cooks delivering, and Watson just being on his A game. I think if you get those down, I think you can do that. But the X factor in this one is Rob Gronkowski. If Gronkowski does not score a touchdown, this game is going to be very, very close. Unfortunately, we know it's Rob Gronkowski without Julian Edelman. I think him and Hogan do score touchdowns in this one. It's going to be a close one, but I'm going to give the edge to Johnny.